Hello, welcome to the Bella Infidelity Stories channel, a place where we delve into true narratives filled with surprising turns. If you found the video enjoyable, consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up. It truly contributes to the growth of our channel. Now, let's immerse ourselves in the narrative. I never imagined I would find myself in this predicament, not even in my wildest dreams. My work has consistently played a significant role in my existence. I had been with the company for several years, and everything was progressing smoothly. I was progressing steadily in my career, taking on more responsibilities and advancing little by little. Mr. Howard, my boss, appeared to appreciate me, or at the very least, valued my dedication to my work. I may not have been the most extroverted person in the office, but I was approachable and dedicated. I fulfilled my responsibilities without creating any issues. I enjoyed a harmonious relationship with my colleagues and found myself in a secure role. Work life was mostly pleasant, with little to grumble about. I truly enjoyed my role, embracing the challenges and celebrating the small victories I encountered throughout the journey. The compensation was quite decent as well. I had a pleasant routine and, generally speaking, I felt satisfied. However, there was a singular issue. From the very first day I joined the company, she caught my attention. Rosa. Her beauty was evident, but there was so much more to her. There was an indescribable quality about her that captivated me. Perhaps it was the aura she exuded. She possessed a grace that seemed entirely natural. Whenever she entered the room, it was as if all eyes were drawn to her. She didn't ask for it, yet there was an undeniable magnetism about her. It was more than merely her appearance. It was the manner in which she presented herself, her self-assurance, the way she engaged with others. She exuded warmth, charm, and kindness. Rosa was far from being just another corporate spouse making a casual office visit. She exuded the essence of a person who had achieved success on her own terms. She exuded a natural ease, effortlessly captivating those around her without any forced effort. I often observed her at the company gatherings, those infrequent moments when she accompanied her husband for dinner, or when she would briefly stop by to see how things were going at the office. Our encounters were brief, just a few minutes to share a handful of words, and that was the extent of it. Initially, I convinced myself it was merely admiration. She was 35, while I was 28. She was wed to Mr. Howard, my superior. She was unattainable in every conceivable manner. However, that was not the complete narrative. As weeks stretched into months, she occupied my thoughts more than was perhaps wise. Initially, I attempted to dismiss it, convincing myself it was merely a passing infatuation. In the end, I was merely one of the staff, while she held the title of the boss's spouse. I shouldn't have been contemplating her in that way. However, the reality is, I found it impossible to restrain myself. It wasn't solely her appearance that captivated me. Indeed, she was breathtaking. Her rich, dark eyes, the warmth of her smile, the grace with which she moved among a crowd. However, it encompassed much more than that. It was the way she evoked emotions in others. She had a remarkable ability to illuminate any space with merely a handful of phrases. I respected her for her self-assurance, for the manner in which she made each person feel valued. The more I encountered her, the clearer it became how deeply I was captivated by her presence. Not solely for her appearance, but for the essence of her character. One couldn't help but observe the way she put everyone at ease, her knack for having a response to nearly every question, and the grace with which she moved through life. I attempted to set these emotions aside. I concealed them. I found myself unable to take any action regarding them. She was wed, and I was employed by her spouse. That was a boundary I couldn't breach. Thus, I laid it to rest. I chose to keep it private. I never actually took any action on it. I continued to show her the same respect I would offer to anyone else. Yet each time I laid eyes on her, an undeniable sensation would awaken within me. It was exasperating, yet I continuously reassured myself that this too shall fade away. This was merely a fleeting moment, a passing infatuation that would eventually diminish. For a time, that was effective. However, the time for the company's year-end celebration arrived. It was one of those corporate gatherings where attendance from the entire office was deemed necessary. Elegant clothing, an evening meal, light conversation, and an abundance of forced grins. The event held significant importance for the company, serving as a means for all to commemorate the achievements of the year. Present were the higher-ups, naturally, accompanied by their families and a handful of business associates. The atmosphere was filled with mingling, punctuated by some forced laughter and the familiar hum of office gossip. I wasn't particularly looking forward to it. I never really enjoyed large social gatherings, particularly those where I was unfamiliar with most attendees beyond my colleagues. Yet, it was an essential aspect of the role, so I arrived just like all the others. The memory of that moment when I first laid eyes on her lingers vividly in my mind. Rosa stood by the entrance, engaged in conversation with a small group of people. She wore a stunning black dress that hugged her figure flawlessly. The outfit was understated yet powerful, effortlessly drawing the eye without uttering a single word. Her hair cascaded in gentle waves, and her smile radiated warmth as ever. I make an effort to avoid gazing too intently. I truly did. But truly, I couldn't resist. There she stood, directly before me, radiating a beauty that surpassed anything I had ever witnessed. It wasn't just me who observed. A group of men observed, her intently as she spoke, chuckling at her every word. I attempted to divert my eyes, yet I found myself unable to do so. I convinced myself it was merely due to her being the boss's wife. That is precisely why she captivated the attention of all. Yet, beneath the surface, I understood it was more than that. It was hard to tell how long it had been until I came to the realization that I had indulged a bit too much in the drinks. I wasn't intoxicated, but the alcohol certainly helped me feel more at ease, easing my nerves. That was the moment I took action. I'm not sure what took hold of me. It felt as though my mind had gone blank. I approached her, just as she burst into laughter at something one of the guys had remarked. It wasn't part of my intentions. It was spontaneous. Yet before I fully grasped the situation, the words slipped from my lips. "Your brilliance truly shines through." She gazed at me, a hint of surprise flickering in her eyes, before a smile broke across her face. "Thank you, Oscar," she murmured gently. "That's kind of you, but I went further than that. Your brilliance truly shines through. Your presence has always inspired admiration in me. You embody all the qualities I seek in an individual." I can't quite grasp why those words slipped out. Perhaps the drink gave me a surge of courage. Perhaps I was simply weary of concealing my true emotions. She paused, her smile dimming just a bit. Yet she remained silent thereafter. She merely gazed at me, her expression a complete mystery. My heart raced in my chest and my palms were slick with sweat. I swiftly offered my apologies and stepped back, attempting to downplay the situation, yet within, I was howling. What on earth have I just done? The night stretched on, my thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance, leaving me uncertain about what the dawn would bring. The following morning, I awoke to a throbbing headache and a queasy sensation in my stomach. Initially, I assumed it was merely the effects of last night's drinking catching up with me. As I lay in bed, gazing at the ceiling, the memories of the company party began to surface in my thoughts. The beverages, the melodies, the joyfulness, and then Rosa. My heart swelled. I had revealed my truth. I genuinely expressed my admiration for my boss's wife. I believed she was truly remarkable. She embodied all the qualities I sought in an individual. I let out a frustrated sigh and buried my face in my hands. What on earth was I considering? I wasn't even that intoxicated. I had finally reached a state of relaxation where my usual restraint slipped away. I found myself revealing emotions that I had successfully kept at bay for so long. I had devoted so much time to controlling my feelings, concealing my admiration, and setting aside my attraction. In a single foolish instant, I had discarded everything. I glanced at my phone, secretly wishing I had conjured the entire situation in my mind. Yet I was aware of the truth. A handful of unread messages awaited me, some from colleagues and a couple from friends checking in to see if I had survived the events of the previous night. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Just, as I was ready to set my phone aside, something caught my eye. A communication from an unfamiliar source. Initially, I assumed it was just junk, but then I decided to take a look. "Hi, Oscar. Are you available to meet?" Isolated. I jolted upright, my head swirling in a dizzying rush. My heart raced. I went over the message no fewer than 10 times. It simply wasn't possible. Did this actually happen? I verified the number again, but naturally I hadn't saved Rosa's contact information. What would be the reason for me to do that? We didn't share a strong bond. She was merely an object of my admiration from afar. However, the initial R. It simply had to be her. I pressed my palms against my cheeks, attempting to shake off the fog in my mind. This must pertain to the events of last night. Perhaps she aimed to set things straight, to ensure I wouldn't misinterpret her intentions. Perhaps she aimed to prevent me from further embarrassing myself by saying something foolish in front of Mr. Howard. Or perhaps it was something entirely different. Absolutely not. That was beyond the realm of possibility. I was aware that allowing my thoughts to drift into perilous realms was unwise. Rosa was a woman bound by the vows of marriage, the spouse of my superior. She wasn't reaching out to me with any intentions of wanting something deeper. Yet my hands were damp as I crafted a reply. Absolutely, no problem at all. At what time and in which location? For a brief moment I paused before hitting send. Several moments slipped by. Suddenly my phone vibrated once more. "This afternoon. I will share the location with you later. I would appreciate it if you could keep this to yourself." I took a deep breath. She preferred to keep it a secret. That could signify a myriad of possibilities. I found myself uncertain about whether I truly wanted to uncover the reality behind it all. The remainder of the morning passed in a haze. I followed the routine, freshened up, put on my clothes, prepared a cup of coffee. Yet my thoughts wandered to other realms. My mind kept returning to that message, to what it might signify. I attempted to convince myself it was insignificant. She merely wished to have a conversation, to clarify the situation. Yet a subtle, perilous voice within me was murmuring an alternative truth. By noon, I was a bundle of anxiety. I found it impossible to remain in one place. I found myself repeatedly glancing at my phone, anticipating her message with the location. At last, just around 1 p.m., another message arrived. "Let's rendezvous at Cafe Verona, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Cafe Verona, a serene little nook just a few blocks from my home." It wasn't overly extravagant, yet it also wasn't the type of venue that colleagues typically frequented. She had chosen it with purpose. I let out a slow breath, attempting to find my balance. I had a couple of hours to devise a plan for how to tackle this situation. I had to behave as if everything was just fine. Maintain a professional demeanor. I won't allow my feelings to overwhelm me once more. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware. This gathering was on the brink of transforming everything. I reached Cafe Verona a bit ahead of time, eager to calm my nerves before her arrival. The atmosphere was serene, punctuated by the soft clinking of cups and the gentle tapping of keys as a handful of customers enjoyed their coffee or immersed themselves in their work. The ambiance was laid back and easygoing, warm, nearly personal. It's not the sort of setting where one would anticipate a deep discussion, yet perhaps that's precisely the reason she selected it. I settled into a cozy corner table by the window, with sunlight pouring in through the glass. My eyes kept darting to the door, anticipation building with each passing moment, as if I were expecting her to make an entrance at any moment. My hands feel icy. Yet I find myself unable to cease my restless fiddling with my phone, glancing at it, setting it aside, only to reach for it once more. I understood the importance of maintaining a sense of normalcy. I needed to remain composed, poised, and avoid embarrassing myself. Yet, the idea of encountering Rosa once more, particularly in light of my words from the previous night, was simply too much to bear. I was uncertain about what lay ahead. What was on her mind to discuss? What could her message mean? And the most pressing inquiry of all, what implications did this hold? The clock inched toward 3 p.m., and at last I caught sight of her entering through the door. I rose swiftly, my heart pounding in my chest. She appeared just as she had at the party the previous night, yet somehow even more captivating. She donned a light blue blouse paired with dark jeans, relaxed yet polished, just like always. Her hair was elegantly gathered into a tidy ponytail, and even from a distance I could discern the delicate makeup that accentuated her inherent beauty. She possessed an allure that went beyond mere looks. There was an undeniable charisma that captivated those around her effortlessly. I managed to smile as she approached me. "Hey, Rosa," I said, my voice trembling slightly more than I had hoped. She smiled back, yet there was an unmistakable quality to it that set it apart. It lacked the warm, inviting smile she had consistently shared with me at the office. This felt more restrained, as if she were attempting to conceal something. "Hello, Oscar," she murmured gently, settling into the chair opposite me. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me." I took a seat, attempting to regain my sense of direction. "I wasn't entirely certain about the topic of our discussion, but I can imagine you're curious about the reason behind my invitation to meet." She interjected softly, her gaze analyzing me intently. I nodded, a tightness swelling in my throat. Honestly, I was a bit uncertain about what this entailed. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes darting momentarily to the window before settling back on me. "I would like to clarify something from last night." I took a deep breath. The impact of her words struck me right away. I was uncertain about her meaning, yet it didn't seem promising. "I understand that things became somewhat heated," she went on, "and I was taken aback by your words. It caught me off guard, and I have a feeling it caught you off guard as well, right?" I let out a hesitant chuckle, attempting to ease the tension. "In the air, indeed. I'm not quite sure what influenced my actions. I had been keeping that inside for some time, and last night I finally released it. I didn't fully consider the implications." She nodded, her expression contemplative. "I comprehend. To be truthful, I found myself at a loss for words when we spoke. It caught me off guard, and I didn't want to hurt your feelings, so I chose to remain silent. That brought me a sense of relief. At least she remained undeterred by it, yet the atmosphere remained charged with intensity. "I apologize if it crossed the line," I said, my voice now softer. "I didn't intend to create any awkwardness." Rosa shook her head, yet her smile remained constrained. "You didn't create any awkwardness, Oscar. However, we are both aware that there are limits we must honor. I am the spouse of your superior. I am his spouse." She expressed it clearly, yet it still stung to listen. "I understand," I whispered, a tightness coiling in my gut. She leaned forward slightly and said, "Look, I didn't request a meeting to initiate anything, but I wanted to ensure we're aligned in our understanding. Last night was simply a moment, a fleeting experience that lingered in the air. I want to clarify that there's nothing beyond this." My heart plummeted. This isn't the way I envisioned this dialogue unfolding. I envisioned a different result, a hint, a whisper, something that might spark a flicker of hope within me. Yet despite my desire to resist, I understood the importance of honoring her limits. She was indeed correct. She was wed to my superior. The entire scenario was chaotic. "Indeed, I understand," I replied softly. I had no expectations whatsoever. I suppose I simply became immersed in the moment. Her lips curved gently, the tightness in her shoulders beginning to dissipate. "I understand. However, I want you to understand that I bear no ill will towards you. Kindly keep in mind the boundaries that exist." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief that the conversation had not taken a turn for the worse. Yet, an unspoken tension lingered beneath the surface. An unspoken understanding lingers between us. Uncertainty lingered in the air, yet one truth remained clear to me. Everything had irrevocably changed. The days following the cafe meeting were undeniably filled with discomfort. I had anticipated a return to normalcy, yet that did not happen. They were unable to. Rosa and I hardly exchanged words beyond the office, which suited us just fine. I found myself at a loss for words, and I definitely had no intention of igniting any more drama. Yet, there lingered a subtle undercurrent of tension and energy between us that felt utterly impossible to overlook. Even in the office, whenever our paths crossed, I sensed it. Her smile remained unchanged, yet there was an added depth to it now. A veil of unspoken words that eluded my grasp. She lingered in my thoughts, an unshakable presence. The manner in which she carried herself, the way her gaze appeared to penetrate my very soul. Her laughter enveloped the entire room in a comforting warmth. I had devoted countless months persuading myself that I would move past this infatuation, this whimsical obsession. However, following that meeting, it seemed as though the situation had only deteriorated. I didn't really anticipate anything occurring. I did not. Yet, a fragment of my being clung to that faint glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, she might reconsider. Perhaps, just perhaps, circumstances could change. However, it wasn't quite that way. She had explicitly stated that there were limits. She was wed to my superior. That marked the conclusion of it all. Still, there were instances. On a Friday afternoon, as I was departing the office a bit later than usual, I noticed her by the elevator, absorbed in her phone. I hadn't intended to stay, yet I found myself unable to pull away. Her presence captured my gaze. Before I realized it, I found myself making my way over. "Hey," I remarked, attempting to keep it light. She glanced upward, her expression brightening for just an instant. "Hello, Oscar. How are you doing?" I nodded, making an effort to maintain a balanced tone in the conversation. "Excellent. A hectic week. What about you?" "Likewise," she remarked, tucking her hair behind her ear. "I'm simply biding my time for Carl to wrap up a few meetings." "Indeed. Occupied individual." "Your partner," I remarked, a smile dancing on my lips, yet the tension beneath my voice was undeniable. She smiled, yet I caught the brief glimmer of uncertainty in her gaze. It was fleeting, yet undeniably present. I attempted to overlook it. "It seems it's time for me to take my leave," I exclaimed, a wave of unease washing over me. "Wishing you a peaceful night, Rosa." She inclined her head, offering me a faint, courteous smile. "Likewise, Oscar." I turned and walked away, yet an unsettling sensation lingered, as if something were amiss. An undeniable attraction lingered between us, an invisible force that beckoned me, even when I was fully aware that such feelings were unwarranted. The weekend slipped away in a haze. I chose not to contact her. She never requested it, and I understood well enough not to insist. However, as I entered the office on Monday morning, there was an unmistakable shift in the atmosphere. Rosa stood by the coffee machine as I walked in, engaged in conversation with several of the other employees. She laughed, at ease, and for a fleeting instant I nearly overlooked the complexity that had unfolded. But then, as if she had felt my presence, her gaze locked onto mine. Her lips formed a subtle, delicate smile. I returned her smile, making an effort to conceal the extent to which her presence influenced me. The remainder of the day unfolded in a typical manner. I remained occupied with my tasks, and our interactions were limited to the rare, casual conversation. Yet each time I caught a glimpse of her, each time our gazes intertwined, an undeniable tension lingered in the atmosphere, and that was when the realization struck me. This was not going to disappear. This isn't suitable for my taste. Not meant for her. I attempted to maintain my distance, to concentrate on my tasks, yet it proved to be quite challenging. Each time I caught sight of her, an irresistible pull enveloped me. Her grace, her poise, the rhythm of her movements, all of it captivated me, and I realized that if I continued to act as if it was insignificant, I would only be deceiving myself. Yet the most challenging aspect was that I was completely in the dark about her desires. Did she share those feelings? Was I merely something she could dismiss without a second thought, or was there something deeper at play that she was reluctant to acknowledge? In that instant, it dawned on me that I was trapped. Trapped in this predicament, I felt lost on how to proceed. I could no longer maintain the facade of being okay, yet I found myself at a loss for what to do next. I had persuaded myself that I could let go. Ultimately, any feelings I had for Rosa would gradually diminish and become less significant. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware that it was untrue. The weeks drifted by, seemingly unchanged, yet in subtle ways, everything transformed. Our exchanges in the workplace continued to uphold a sense of professionalism, just as they consistently had. To an observer, everything would appear completely normal, yet I was aware of the truth. Behind each fleeting glance, each subtle smile, and every seemingly casual interaction, I sensed a profound depth, an unvoiced connection waiting to be uncovered. One evening, my phone vibrated with a message. "Rosa, do you have any availability this evening?" I gazed at the screen for a moment, contemplating my reply before finally typing it out. "Mia, how's it going?" Shortly thereafter, another message arrived. "Rosa, would you be able to meet with me? Identical location as before." A knot formed in my stomach. My response came to me effortlessly. "I will be present." 30 minutes later, I found myself at the same cafe where our paths had crossed previously. My hands cradled a cup of coffee, yet I found myself not sipping from it. My thoughts were swirling chaotically, each one a fragment that failed to coalesce into a coherent idea. And then, she entered the scene. She noticed me right away and approached with purpose. As she settled into her seat opposite me, the tension in her posture was impossible to ignore. Her slight pause before she began to speak was telling. "I wasn't certain whether I should reach out to you," she confessed, her tone more delicate than normal. "I genuinely appreciate that you did." With a soft sigh, she gently stirred the tea before her. "Oscar, I'm feeling quite lost at the moment." The manner in which she expressed it, the weariness evident in her tone, the doubt reflected in her gaze, caused a tightness in my chest. I confessed that I felt the same way, yet I realized that acting as if everything is fine isn't effective. She gazed at me then, probing my features as though she were seeking a response within my expression. This can't continue. I nodded with deliberation. I understand. It has been. Quite a lengthy pause. She finally said, I can't stop wondering what will happen if someone discovers the truth. If Carl discovers. Her voice was soft, yet the impact of her words was profound. I understand the dangers, Rosa, I replied, yet my feelings remain unchanged. She emitted a faint, sardonic chuckle. That is the issue at hand. It remains the same, for me as well. My heart raced within me. For months I found myself questioning if she genuinely shared my feelings, wondering if it was all just a figment of my imagination. Yet when she voiced it, when she acknowledged it aloud, it intensified the reality of it all, and even more unattainable. She reclined in her chair, massaging her temple. I'm feeling quite lost, Oscar. I have no desire to cause harm to anyone. I wish to preserve everything as it is. I let out a slow breath. I don't either. However, we cannot overlook this indefinitely. She gazed at me for an extended moment before giving a subtle nod. I understand. Yet another silence lingered between us. It wasn't awkward, yet it brimmed with all the unspoken words between us. At last, she let out a sigh and looked at the clock. I ought to take my leave. I acquiesced, even though I wished for her to stay. Understood. She paused momentarily before rising to her feet. Meeting you, Oscar, is something I cherish. I find myself uncertain about what this means for us moving forward. I took a deep breath. I feel the same way. She offered me a faint, melancholic smile. Without uttering another word, she pivoted and strode out of the cafe. I lingered in that moment long after she departed, gazing at my untouched coffee, attempting to unravel the chaos of what had just unfolded. After months of searching, I finally found the answer I had been seeking. She shared those sentiments. Yet, I remained uncertain about how to proceed with it, and that was the most terrifying aspect of it all.